The biggest story in the Old Testament that talks about this, I'm going to spend a lot more time on this than any other one, is it's in 1 Samuel. I'm going to start in chapter 16. It has to do with King Saul. Do you guys remember the story of King Saul? He was the first ruler of Israel, he was the first king of Israel. Remember how he got to be king? Israel never had a king before that. But at some point, they started whining and complaining and said, we want a king. Why did they want a king? Because all the pagan nations around them had kings. So we want to have a king because we want to be like the people around us, the pagans. God didn't really like the idea, but he finally said, okay, I'll give you a king. And the king that he gave them was probably would have been voted the most popular in his high school class. He was a head taller than everybody. He was a good-looking guy. His name was Saul. He was a good guy, actually. So he became king. And he did some things. He ruled Israel for a while. And at some point, he did something to rebel against God. He did something to he basically broke the command that God gave him. And that's not really pertinent to the story, but remember how I just said a while ago that God said you need to destroy everybody and everything. He told him that specifically. So I think it was the Amalekites, I'm not sure. He said, you utterly destroy them. You don't leave one even livestock alive. And he decided that he would just do it his own way. And he left some alive. And I think it was the prophet Nathan, if I remember correctly, came up and he said, Saul, what's that bleating that I hear? Not bleating, bleating, the sheep noise. What's that I hear in the background? And he's like, oh, that, yeah. Oh, that's just, remember we killed all the Amalekites? Well, I kept the best cattle and the best sheep and everything because I want to sacrifice them to God. Because God is worthy of all that. So I brought him a sacrifice. And you've heard this from the Bible. It says, to obey is better than sacrifice. That's where that came from. And he literally said, you should have obeyed me, instead of saying, oh, well, I'll break your rule and then I'll come back and try to offer you a sacrifice to make it all better. So that's not really, God doesn't really, he's not looking for us to live our own way and then come back and say, oh, sorry, shouldn't have done that. Forgive me for I've sinned, sort of thing. So anyway, Saul is rejected by God as king. Saul, when he was king, had the Spirit of God on him. God was with him. When David was anointed, and most of you guys know that story, he was out in the field and the prophet came Prophet Samuel came and he called in one by one. He was told by God, the prophet, to go to the house of Jesse, and one of Jesse's sons would be king, and I want you to anoint him. And so he went down the line. He's like, this is a big strapping guy. This is my oldest son. Surely this will be king. Nope. Went down the line, and he got to the end, and he's like, the prophet's like, I don't know this. I don't know what to tell you. You must have another son somewhere because God's telling me it's not any of these people. So then David comes in they call for David, who's out there with the sheep, and he anoints David. Well, from that point on, the Holy Spirit is on David. God's Spirit is with David, and it leaves Saul. It departs from Saul and now is with David. So are you with me so far? I'm trying to set this up for you. All right, well, you would think that would mean that David is now king and Saul's not king. In the physical, Saul stayed king for quite a number of years, and David was a nobody. David was a nobody. Nobody knew who he was at first. And then he did some things like killing Goliath, and then he was actually called in to be with Saul all of the time. But why was he called in to be with Saul? That's where we get to the demon part. That's what I'm actually going for here. 16:14 in 1 Samuel says, now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord terrorized him. Evil spirit, another name for demon, right? So a demon is now terrorizing Saul. So Saul went from having the Holy Spirit on him, and it's gone now, and now he's got a demon that's tormenting him. Well, here's what's really crazy, and this is what will mess with your theology a little bit. It said he was sent from the Lord, an evil spirit from the Lord. I thought God didn't do stuff like that. God doesn't do bad things, does he? Well, apparently he had a reason to do this. But it didn't say he sent an angel to torment him. He sent an evil spirit to torment him. Well, we've already talked about how we have God's kingdom, it's the kingdom of light, and the kingdom of heaven, and then you've got the kingdom of darkness, which is Satan, and he rules over that. They all the demons work for Satan. So what's going on here? Why is there a demon working for God? That's like working for the enemy, right? Well, think about this for just a second. Yeah, it's similar to Job. So what's happening is, it doesn't matter that you have two kingdoms. What matters is that the ruler of this kingdom overrules this one. So he can pull any of his soldiers he wants off for his use if he needs to. So God actually called for an evil spirit to torment Saul. I suspect it has to do with not just because he was disobedient, but probably because he wanted to bring about Saul's demise so that David could be king. That's just my thought. I don't know for sure exactly why it was. That's just what I surmise from it. So, it says, Saul's servants then said, and I think this is kind of funny because this doesn't sound out of the ordinary to them. Because they all of a sudden see there's this demonic spirit that's coming on Saul and it's tormenting him, and they recognize what it is. So apparently this is part of their everyday life. This isn't unusual for them. Saul's servants then said to him, "Behold, now an evil spirit from God is terrorizing you. Let our Lord now command your servants who are before you. Let them seek a man who is a skillful player on the harp. And it shall come about when the evil spirit from God is on you, he shall play the harp with his hand, and you will be well." So Saul said to his servants, "Provide for me now a man who can play well, and bring him to me." Then one of the young men said, "Behold, I've seen the son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is a skillful musician, a mighty man of valor, a warrior, one prudent in speech, and a handsome man, and the Lord is with him." Boy, that right there is a mouthful. And when Saul heard that, you'd think Saul might have said, "Wow, this is competition. This is probably not good. I probably shouldn't have this guy around." But he hadn't figured that out yet. So Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Send me your son David, who is with his flock." Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread and a jug of wine and a young goat and sent them to Saul by David his son. Then David came to Saul and attended him, and Saul loved him greatly. So Saul loved David. And he became his armor bearer. So an armor bearer is like one of the closest persons to the king, right? So he came to be his armor bearer. And it says, "Let David now," Saul sent to Jesse, saying, this is David's father, saying, "Let David now stand before me," in other words, stay with me, "for he's found favor in my sight." So it came about that whenever the evil spirit from God came to Saul, now this is important too, it says when he came, so this would come and depart. The spirit would come and go, right? Okay. So David would take his harp when the spirit was tormenting him and play it with his hand, and Saul would be refreshed and be well, and the evil spirit would depart from him. So first of all, what do you think? Do you think that those servants that said, "Oh no, there's a spirit from the evil spirit that's tormenting you," do you think they saw an evil spirit? Do you think they saw this black mist come in, or this red, thing with horns? No. How did they know? There must have been some outward sign. What was the outward sign do you think they knew that he was being tormented?
Anger.
Okay, he might have anger and rage, possibly. What else do you think?
Anxiety.
Probably got real anxious and just freaking out, just like beside himself.
Clearly wasn't himself.
Clearly wasn't himself.
Yeah.
Probably mentally anguished and tormented, right? Okay. And I find that that's much of what demons are responsible for, is mental torment. They do a lot of that. And that's part of why we're talking about this class, so that we can expose that. It might be part of why my voice isn't very good right now. I don't know. It's possible. But I don't care. I like to tell people that we minister to. I say, "Oh, by the way, I don't like to lose." I'll go more into ministry another day, maybe, but I don't like to lose. And since the devil's my adversary and the demons, I don't like to lose against them. So they noticed something about him, right? So obviously there's a change back when the thing departs from him, right? So what do you think it's departing? Why is it departing from him? I have my own theory. I'll see if you have the same theory as I do. Why do you think that spirit would depart? What would make the evil spirit want to leave?
Spirit of the Lord.
There you go, exactly. I don't think it was the harp music, because that was what they said. Get somebody that's really good at the harp, and we heard that evil spirits don't like harp music. I mean, there's certain kinds of music I really don't care for. Some of it's just, but it's not going to make me leave the room. And I don't think that evil spirit's going to leave just because it's got, you're playing polka music or whatever kind of music it doesn't like.
I don't know, rap might make him.
I won't even comment on that one. It might make them stay, but that's a whole other story. So, he's doing something. Well, the reason I tend to agree with you guys is because David spent a lot of time in relationship, working on his relationship, his intimacy with God when he was with his sheep, right? And one of the things he did was he played his harp and he sang. So I'm pretty sure he wasn't singing oldies. I'm pretty sure he wasn't singing the classic rock from the 70s.
No cover tunes.
Good you guys with no covers, yeah. I'm glad you guys caught that because you're thinking, when was David alive? It would have been before the 70s. You guys are good.
Worshiping. When you worshiping.
Yeah, so he's doing praise and worship to his God. And demons don't really like that. If you'll remember, they were in heaven and they're not now. They didn't really like God, and they still don't like God, and they don't really want to hang out around him unless they have a reason to do that, correct?
Yeah.
So when God is being praised, and that really irritates them, they don't like it when you praise God because you're talking up their enemy, right? So if you're saying great things and how wonderful and great their enemy is, it just ticks them off. They don't like it. There's several things they don't like, but that's one of them. All right, so he sends it, and it was just a guess as to mine as to why he sent that evil spirit to torment him. But the fact is, there are evil spirits. This shows us that evil spirits torment people, and we think from the description that it's probably mentally torment. There are cases where they do things physically to people. We'll get to that in the New Testament. You can see how they're responsible for physical ailments. But I believe, by and large, it's a whole lot more mental torment than anything else. All right. So, 1 Samuel 18, I'm just going to kind of skip through this story. But 1 Samuel 18, 10 through 13 says, Now it came about on the next day that an evil spirit from God came mightily upon Saul. Now this time it says it came mightily upon Saul, and he raved in the midst of the house while David was playing the harp with his hand. I'm going to stop there for a second. He raved. What kind of a picture does that paint for you when you say the king started raving?
Probably throwing a fit, walking the room, throwing things.
Have you heard the term stark raving mad? Do you think he was acting like a madman and yelling and screaming and making no sense whatsoever? I think that's what was happening. Okay. And then notice it came mightily upon him, and he raved in the midst of the house, while David was playing the harp with his hand as usual. Now, this is interesting, because before, when David played the harp, the spirit left. The evil spirit left, right? This time it didn't. But notice the key word there. It came mightily upon Saul. It was determined that day. It was like, I played this game before, and I know what he's going to do, and I'm going to grab on, I'm going to hang on, and I'm going to win this fight. That's what the evil spirit's thinking, okay? They do think, by the way. We'll get to that later. So now he's playing the harp, but the thing is not going away. And if it wants to win, what's its best chance of winning? If it wants to win with Saul, what's its adversary? What is this evil spirit's adversary in this story? David.
Yes.
So what's the best way to win?
Take David out.
Take out David. Exactly. So guess what? Saul hurled the spear. There was a spear in Saul's hand. Saul hurled the spear, and it says, for he thought, and that's really important here. I'll tell you why in a second. Hurled his spear at David, for he thought, I will pin David to the wall. But David escaped from his presence twice. That always makes me laugh when I read that, because I'm thinking, you know what? Somebody hurls a spear to pin me to the wall. That's going to be the only time. I'm not going to be like, you're feeling better now. I'll just go ahead and play some more.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be a little. But David was doing the right thing. I mean, I'm making light of it, but obviously David was doing what he was supposed to be doing, and God protected David. Why is it important when I said about it says he thought, I will pin David to the wall? It says he, meaning Saul, but where did that thought come from? That wasn't Saul that originated. It did not originate from Saul, it originated from the Spirit. But who do you think Saul thought that thought came from? He thought it was himself. He thought, that little punk, he ticks me off, and I'm going to pin him to the wall, and I'm going to show him. So he believed that it was just him. Right? Okay, so they can influence thoughts. They can put thoughts in your head, and you don't even necessarily know it. It also waited to put the thought in his head till he had a spear in his hand. Because can a demon pick up a spear and throw it at somebody? No, they don't have that capability. They don't have a body. They don't have that. They're just not. They can't do that. So they have to work through somebody, right? Does that make sense? In order, if they want to kill somebody, pick up a spear and kill somebody, or pick up a gun and kill somebody, they have to do it through somebody else. They have to convince them through thoughts. Also, he was enraged, right? Don't you think he was enraged? Okay. So now, think about this. There's three parts to us. There's our soul, our spirit, and our body. And our soul is our mind, our will, and our emotions. And it's not uncommon for demons to inhabit a person's soul. That's the most common place for them to inhabit. Now, if they were in his soul, if this was in his soul, think about that. It influenced his mind with a thought. His emotions, it made him mad and enraged, right? And because it wasn't physically controlling his arm, because it couldn't, it did what it had to provoke him to do that, right? So, mind, will, and emotions, and his will. He bent his will, right? Causing him to want to throw the thing and kill him. So, we'll get talking more about that later. I just kind of wanted to put that, or later, I just want to put that out there for now. So, this happened twice, it said. Next verse, verse 12 says, Now Saul was afraid of David, better believe it. He should have been afraid of David because he tried to kill him twice. And God made sure that he was safe. For the Lord was with him. So you think Saul recognized that the Lord was with him? Oh yeah. Saul's like, I've been there, done that. I know what it's like when the Lord's with you. I recognize the presence of God on David. And I don't know about you, but if I had the presence of God on me and it left and God said, shame on you, you shouldn't have done that, now I'm going to take it away, I'm going to give it to that guy over there, I'd be scared of that guy over there. I'd be like, I know the power and I know what it's like and of the living God, and now he's got it. Things aren't looking well for me, aren't boding well for me. So, but he had, it says, for he knew, Saul was afraid of David, for the Lord was with him, but had departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from his presence, meaning David, and appointed him as the commander of 1,000, and went out and came in before the people. So what was Saul's solution? I've tried to kill him twice, it's not working, now what am I going to do?
Send him to war.
Send him to war. And he had a plan, and I won't go through the whole thing, but there was more than one time that he sent him to the front lines. And if you want to get rid of a soldier, that's the best thing to do. Send them to the front lines and hope they get killed. And that was his plan. All right. 1 Samuel 19, 9 and 10 says, Now there was an evil spirit from the Lord on Saul as he was sitting in his house with a spear in his hand, and David was playing the harp with his hand. Saul tried to pin David to the wall with his spear, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence. So they stuck the spear in the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. And again, like I said, I'm just kind of jumping through here. I have a little rabbit trail here, and I do a lot of rabbit trails, but I actually literally typed out rabbit trail here. It says, Saul prophesies after the Spirit of God had originally left him. The reason I'm going to harp on this a little bit is because I talked to so many Christians, like 95% of them I talked to said, Christians can't be demonized. Christians can't have demons. A Christian couldn't have a demon in their soul or anything that needed to be cast out, that sort of thing. Well, here's why I mention this. Remember that the Spirit of God had left Saul and went on to David from that day forward. 3 chapters later, after having sent messengers on a mission to take David with the same result each time, Saul himself goes after David. When he does, the same thing happens to him that happened to his messengers. He began to prophesy as the Spirit of God came upon him. Whoa, wait a minute. He's the Spirit of God left him, and he's got an evil spirit. So Saul has this evil spirit, but yet now it says the Spirit of God came on him. So is it possible that Saul had the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit on him at the same time they had an evil spirit? Absolutely. That's exactly what it's saying. That's important, and we'll find out more later down the line. What was interesting was what happened to Saul when the Spirit of God came on him. It caused Saul to strip off his clothes, lay down naked all day and all night prophesying. So here, talk about salt in the wound, insult to injury. Saul had already been stripped of his kingship. He had lost the Spirit of God. Now the Spirit of God comes upon him, and Well, do you remember when David said, I'll be even more undignified than this? It was not dignified for a king not to be in all their garments and their robes. And I know a lot of people think that David was dancing around his underwear, but he really wasn't dancing around his underwear. But he had taken off all his royal tunics, and he was like any other man. And that was why Michal, his wife, was so upset. She's like, you're better than that. How dare you get out there like a common man? So for him to strip down, for Saul to strip down, that would be humiliating for Saul. And so that's why it's adding insult to injury. And then on top of that, prophesying, just prophesying, praising God, saying all this great things about God, prophesying after God's already left him. So it's like the spirit that left me is now, I'm praising all, putting praise and worship on the spirit that left me. So that would have to hurt. But Saul made his choice. It wasn't like God was being mean. Saul made that choice.